Okay. Here we are for part two. This is regarding the part one being the James Traficant speech that had occurred March 17th of 1993. And I went through the first three paragraphs, and they defined it, or he defined that the country, the United States, in a state of Chapter 11 bankruptcy, that the United States federal government has been dissolved, and that it exists in name only. And this was done back in 1933, excuse me, which is a significant amount of time ago. It was before most of us have ever been born. So on these three paragraphs that I read, that a result of this being bankrupt, we're also a democracy being controlled by socialists and communists. That's what he said. No one rebutted this. No one has taken the stand to say you're wrong, and I have better evidence. So this stands as truth. So I'm going to go on from there. I'd like to read the rest of it because it has much to say insofar as to what has led us into this type of predicament that we're in now. So, fourth paragraph. He states, gold and silver was such a powerful money during the founding of the United States of America that the founding fathers declared that only gold or silver coins be money. In America, since gold and silver coinage were heavy and inconvenient for a lot of transactions, they were stored in banks and a claim check was issued as a money substitute. People traded their coupons as money or currency. Currency is not money but a money substitute. Redeemable currency must promise to pay a dollar equivalent in gold or silver money. Federal Reserve notes, FRNs, make no such promises and are not money. So when you're holding what you think is money, it really isn't. It's currency. And it is, well, I'll go on here. A Federal Reserve note is a debt obligation of the federal United States government, not money. The federal United States government and the U.S. Congress were not and have never been authorized by the Constitution for the United States of America to issue currency of any kind, but only lawful money, gold and silver coin. Fifth paragraph. It is essential that we comprehend the distinction between real money and paper money substitute. One cannot get rich by accumulating money substitutes. One can only get deeper into debt. We the people no longer have any money. Most Americans have not been paid any money for a long time, perhaps not in their entire life. Now do you comprehend why you feel broke? Now do you understand why you are bankrupt along with the rest of the country? Okay, next paragraph. Federal Reserve notes are unsigned checks written on a closed account. FRNs are an inflatable paper system designed to create debt through inflation, or in parentheses, devaluation of currency. Whenever there is an increase of the supply of a money substitute in the economy without a corresponding increase in the gold and silver backing, inflation occurs. Inflation is an invisible form of taxation that irresponsible governments inflict on their citizens. The Federal Reserve Bank, who controls the supply and movement of FRNs, has everybody fooled. They have access to an unlimited supply of FRNs, paying only for the printing costs what they need. FRNs are nothing more than promissory notes for the U.S. Treasury securities, or T-bills, a promise to pay the debt to the Federal Reserve Bank. There is a fundamental difference, so next paragraph, there is a fundamental difference between paying and discharging a debt. To pay a debt, to pay a debt, you must pay with value or substance. that is gold, silver, barter, or a commodity. With FRNs, you can only discharge a debt. You cannot pay a debt without or with a debt currency system. You cannot service a debt with a currency that has no backing in value or substance. No contract in common law is valid unless it involves an exchange of good and valuable consideration. He put that good and valuable consideration in quotes because that is a legal argument that lawyers who would be working on your behalf try to establish as a point when some company or organization suddenly takes over your credit card or your bank loan or whatever and says, now you owe us because you are, and they pay pennies on the dollar for that sort of thing. But you have no contract with them. And they're not giving you any good and valuable consideration, just more misery. So anyway, unpayable debt transfers power and control to the sovereign power structure that has no interest in money, law, equity, or justice because they have so much wealth already. The next paragraph is one sentence. Their lust is for power and control. Since the inception of central banking, they have controlled the fates of nations. Next paragraph. The federal system is based on the canon law and the principles of sovereignty protected in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. In fact, the international bankers used a canon law trust as their model, adding stock and naming it a joint stock trust. The U.S. Congress has passed a law making it illegal for any legal person to duplicate a joint stock trust in 1873. The Federal Reserve Act was legislated post facto to 1870, although post facto laws are strictly forbidden by the Constitution. And he references in parentheses 1:9:3. So that would be in the somewhere in the Constitution. I probably should go through that with you as well. The Federal Reserve System is a sovereign power structure. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the next paragraph again. The Federal Reserve System is a sovereign power structure and distinct from the federal United States government. The Federal Reserve is a maritime lender and or maritime insurance underwriter to the federal United States, operating exclusively under admiralty/maritime law. The lender or underwriter bears the risks, and the maritime law compelling specific performance in paying the interest or premiums are the same. Next paragraph, assets of the debtor can also be hypothecated, in other words, to pledge something as a security without taking possession of it, as security by the lender or underwriter. The Federal Reserve Act stipulated that the interest on the debt was to be paid in gold. There was no stipulation in the Federal Reserve Act for ever paying the principal. Prior to 1913, most Americans owned clear allodial title to property, free and clear of any liens or mortgages until the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. Hypothecated all property within the federal United States government to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, in which the trustees or stockholders held legal title. The U.S. citizen, tenant, franchisee was registered as a beneficiary of the trust via his/her birth certificate. In 1933, the federal United States hypothecated all of the present and future properties, assets, and labor of their subjects of the 14th Amendment U.S. citizen to the Federal Reserve System. In other words, they are the owners. They own you. They own all the property, including property you think you own. Well, again, I refer to George Carlin and the American Dream. Just type that in your search, and you'll find it and play it. And he gives you a short synopsis of the position that we're all in. So anyway, the next paragraph, In return, the Federal Reserve System agreed to extend the Federal United States Corporation all the credit money substitute it needed. Like any other debtor, the Federal United States government had to assign collateral and security to their creditors as a condition of the loan. Since the Federal United States didn't have any assets, they assigned the private property of their economic slaves, you, in other words, and me, the U.S. citizens, as collateral against the unpayable federal debt. They also pledged the unincorporated federal territories, national parks, forests, birth certificates, and nonprofit organizations as collateral against the federal debt. All has already been transferred as payment to the international bankers. Next paragraph. Unwittingly, America has returned to its pre-American Revolution. Feudal roots whereby all land is held by a sovereign and common people and is held by a sovereign and the common people had no rights to hold a allodial title to property. Once again, we the people are the tenants and the sharecroppers renting our own property from a sovereign in the guise of the Federal Reserve Bank. We the people have exchanged one master for another. This has been going on for over 80 years. Now remember, this is 1993. So you take 1913 and add 1993, and that's coming up to 80 years there. Add another, 33, because we're now into 2026. And that's the total time that this has been going on. So this has been going on for over 80 years without the informed knowledge of the American people, without a voice protesting loud enough. Now it's easy to grasp why America is fundamentally bankrupt. The next paragraph, one sentence, short, just like this. Why don't more people own their properties outright? Well, that's a good question. Next paragraph. Why are 90% of Americans mortgaged to the hilt and have little or no assets after all debts and liabilities have been paid? Why does it feel like you are working harder and harder and getting less and less? Next paragraph. We are reaping what has been shown, and the results of our harvest is a painful bankruptcy and a foreclosure on American property, precious liberties, and a way of life. Few of our elected representatives in Washington, D.C., have dared to tell the truth. The federal United States is bankrupt. Our children will inherit this unpayable debt and the tyranny to enforce paying it. Final paragraph. America has become completely bankrupt in world leadership, financial credit, and its reputation for courage, vision, and human rights. This is an undeclared economic war, bankruptcy, and economic slavery of the most corrupt order. Wake up, America. Take back your country. I thought that was a very poignant and important speech at the time. It's in the United States Congressional Record, March 17th, 1993, Volume 33, page H-1303. It's got a lot of threes in it. For me, it helps me to remember. I keep that memorized because this is the state that we're in. This is where we're going. This is what's been happening. This is really why you're working more and more and getting less and less. It's not due to, like has been said, that the Generation X or the Boomer generation has caused all this. They weren't even born. I wasn't even born by the time that these acts had been enacted. 1913 for the Federal Reserve Act. 1933 for the Emergency Banking Act, putting our country into a state of legal bankruptcy. 1933 again for the House Joint Resolution, for taking away the gold standard, abrogating the gold clause. 1871, there is a act that Congress put through. It's called the District of Columbia Organic Act of 1871. Well, that's how you can guess what year that it came out. This is from a long time ago. This is from a drip drop, year by year, decade by decade influence that has brought us into this particular point. This was not the dream of our founding fathers. When asked, Thomas Jefferson came out after the ratification of the Constitution itself in 1791. He was vice president under George Washington at the time. There were reporters, I may have mentioned this before, they asked, what did you set up as a result of all of this? Did you set up a democracy or a republic? His answer was clear and was stated as such: a republic, if you can keep it. It is up to you to know the law and be well disposed to use it. So here we are, and we keep on going. I shall be back. I've got more information and things for you to consider. So anyway, this is Transient Foreigner with Manu LLC. Good day.